Good afternoon. My name is Bill Duffy, longtime Clark resident. We're here at Clark Arthur L. Johnson High School, where I've just completed putting up the Clark Fallen Heroes display. And I want to personally thank the Clark Board of Education, all the principals over the last 20 years that have allowed me to put up the display dedicated to our Clark Fallen Heroes. They're very veteran friendly here at the school. And just as a note, I graduated from A.L.J. in 1967, a long time ago. But glad to come back here and do this to honor our Clark Fallen Heroes. Number one is Corporal James Bowman. He lived on Raritan Road, where the supermarket Bank of America is presently located, and Clarkton Shopping Center. That was the Bowman farm. During Lincoln's second call for volunteers in September of 1862, James volunteered, joined the 14th New Jersey Infantry of Volunteers and 14th Regiment, and died at Cold Harbor on June 1st, 1864, with 7,000 other troops. World War I, Private John Miller lived on Valley Road, where the American Felt Company was located. His father worked there, and they lived nearby. He was killed in France at the end of the war during the Meuse-Argonne offensive, which was the last Allied offensive to defeat the Germans, which they did. World War II, we have Benjamin Bianco, lived on Lincoln Boulevard in Clark. He was at the Naval Battle of Guadalcanal. He died on November 13th, 1942, along with another Clark Fallen hero, John L. Ruddy. Bianco died around 2 a.m. on gun number 2 on the USS Monson, and he went down with the ship. His sister wrote a letter to the commander. The commander survived the sinking of the ship, and that's when the commander says Benny was in gun number 2. And got hit by a Japanese shell, and he is considered on eternal patrol on the Munson. Charles Bitsko, he's a hillside guy, but when he joined the Army, he was living with his mom's sister on Raritan Road in Clark. He was aboard a troop transport ship in the Pacific when he fell off a ladder. He had an accident on a ladder and had a concussion, and he died from that concussion. Paul Klaus lived on Colvin Road. He grew up in Elizabeth, but his parents moved to Colvin Road while he was in the service, so now he becomes a Clark Fallen hero. Klaus was coming to the aid of a wounded soldier on Leyte Island, the Philippines, when he was killed by the Japanese. Melvin Graves, World War II, lived on Valley Road. He was at the Battle of the Bulge, and this is a very sad one. On December 24th, 1944, and here is the letter from the battlefield, dear son, and he talks about he's got an important task at hand. But here's the real sad part. The real reason I'm writing through to wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Maybe by this time next year, I can be with you and Mommy, and we can have a swell time together on Christmas Day when Santa comes home. He was killed in action a month later at the end of the Battle of the Bulge. Russell Green grew up in Linden. Probably never slept a night in Clark, but after he was in the service, his parents moved to Clark on Raritan Road, and that became his official residence. Russell died in Italy at the Battle of Anzio Beach, one day before his birthday.
My son forgot his...
Alvin Grossman is a hillside guy, but his mom moved to Clark up on Lake Avenue while he was in the service. And he was in a training accident in Arizona, I believe it was, and he died in service. Eugene Hutchison is a Florida guy, but he married Gertrude Amon from Westfield Avenue. They then moved in with her parents. He was on the SS Albacore, which is a submarine, and it was sunk off of North Kokata Island in northern Japan. He went down with the ship. Edward Makowski is a Linden guy, but his mom moved to Lake Avenue after the war, and he was considered a Clark resident. He was going on a bombing mission as a navigator when all of a sudden the pilot stopped the plane from taking off, threw the brakes on, but it did not stop in time. It went off the end of the runway with a full load of fuel and bombs. And as you see on the lower photo here, this is a photo of the explosion of the airplane at the end of the runway. Joey Padusniak, true Clark resident, lived on Westfield Avenue. He died at the Battle of the Bulge in December of 1944. Here is the second Clark resident who died at the Naval Battle of Guadalcanal, John L. Ruddy. Him and Benjamin Bianco were at the Naval Battle of Guadalcanal. it was always assumed that John L. was the first Clark resident to die in World War II. My research has found that John L. died at 11 a.m. on that day, and Benjamin Bianco died at 2 a.m. So actually, Benny's the first casualty of World War II, but it's a fine, deserving honor that the Clark VFW is named after him. This is Martin Schmidt. He's a Roselle Park guy. But back then, a lot of towns went to the high school in Springfield, New Jersey, including Clark students. He had a high school sweetheart there at Springfield High School. They got married, and after their marriage, they moved in with her parents on Westfield Avenue, across from where the Clark American Legion is right now. He died while on patrol in Germany, and I spoke to an eyewitness who was behind Martin when he died, when a German artillery shell came and the shrapnel struck Martin, and he died. Joseph Witkowski lived on Hart Street at the time and was later named Joseph Street after Joseph Witkowski and Joseph Poduzniak, but he was died during the Normandy breakout in France in July of 1944. John Wilkes, he died during the Cold War. The Cold War started the day after the end of World War II on May 9th, 1945, until when the Berlin Wall came down, 1989, 1990. We were always, somewhere in the world, there was always American forces at war with other countries, proxy wars they called them, and it was always us against Russia. And he was on a training accident in the Arizona desert in a jet when he died. The plane crashed. He's buried right next to his baby boy Wilkes, his infant son. This is Richard Hartman. He was on the USS Oriskany, the same ship that Senator McCain from Arizona was on. Hartman took off in July of '67. I think McCain was September of '67. And he was on a bombing mission over North Vietnam when anti-aircraft fire struck his jet. He was able to shoot out of the plane, parachuted down, was captured on the ground by North Vietnamese forces, and the next day the Navy sent a helicopter out to try to retrieve him. The helicopter was knocked down. Those 4 naval personnel died, and he was repatriated in the 1970s. He died in custody in North Vietnam. Vietnam, now we're starting the blue boards. The blue boards are for the A.L.J. graduates. This is Kenny Cuspiel. After graduating high school in 1964, he went to college. All his friends from A.L.J. were not going to college, and they all got drafted in '65, '66. So Kenny says, I'm dropping out of college, I'm going to up my draft. And he told the draft board to draft me, and he went into the service and died in service in Vietnam. Captain Bobby Savelle, quarterback of the 1961 Crusader football team, left-handed quarterback, number 11. And his high school sweetheart was the captain of the cheerleading team. They later got married. They had a son, Bobby Jr. He probably could have got a deferment and not gone into the service, but he wanted to be a jet fighter pilot in the Marine Corps. He entered the service, and his eyesight was not perfect, and they made him a helicopter pilot. Well, in February of 1968, at the beleaguered Marine base at Quai Son in Vietnam, he was ferrying troops back and forth to the Quai Son Marine base when the helicopter was struck by ground fire, and all aboard, a total of 28 crashed, including Captain Savelle. This is his beautiful dress uniform. I had Eddie Nees, he's a former Clark resident, to assist me in getting the medals put on the captain's uniform. Gorgeous, beautiful uniform. John Winters would have graduated A.L.J. in 1969, but he dropped out of school early to join the Marine Corps and fight in Vietnam. And he was killed in action in Vietnam. Let's see, 1969, Life magazine did a story on all Americans that had died the previous week in Vietnam, and John Winters was one of them. This is a recent casualty, PFC Stephen Benish, class of '02, A.L.J. Joined the Army after high school and was killed in Iraq. This is his Army Class A uniform with his medals. Next is Sergeant James Harvey, lived on Conger Way. Graduated A.L.J. 2005. His parents moved to Toms River, and he joined the Army in 2009. But he's a Clark Fallen hero. He graduated A.L.J. And he was killed in action in Afghanistan. These are the 2 Garwood students who went to A.L.J. here. And when I went to school in the '60s, the Garwood Kids came to A.L.J. And then I believe it was in the 70s or 80s, they went to the Brearley in Kenilworth. But now the Garwood Kids are back at A.L.J. So we got Kevin Corcoran, killed in action in Vietnam. Tommy Davis, killed in action in Vietnam. After talking to you about the Clark Fallen Heroes, I want to bring you over to the permanent A.L.J. alumni Fallen Heroes. All of them are included in the Clark Fallen Heroes display, but this is permanent display to the 7 A.L.J. Fallen Heroes who went off to war and didn't come home. We have Tommy Davis from Garwood. We have Kevin Corcoran from Garwood. And in the case, we have Kenny Cuspiel from Clark. Bobby Savelle from Clark is in the middle. Over to the right is John P. Winters. Then the latest fallen heroes, Stephen Benish and James Harvey. Again, the high school has been very good to the veterans of Clark to let us display our honor for the fallen heroes. We are right now at A.L.J. Clark High School. I was class of 1967.
Class of 2000.
Class of 2000 for Tara. But I'm with the boss of A.L.J. right here now. She's the principal. She's the boss. And she's in her first year as principal of A.L.J. And she's continued the tradition of welcoming the fallen heroes in here for May, for Memorial Day. And I've been very fortunate the last 20 years. All the principals have been very good to the veterans of Clark and to me. And we're here today to put up the display. And I wanted to put Tara on air. Tara?
Well, actually, we're the ones that are really fortunate. Honestly, I know that you've put so much effort and labor of love into this, and really have put forth for our students so much information for them to kind of absorb as they walk in the door in the building. I love where the display is. I love how it looks. We actually have a display here that's all year that Mr. Duffy has put together as well, and we are just thankful for you, and so that they can walk by, students, parents, anyone that comes into our building, and see what they're a part of, a tradition here.
When I went to A.L.J., Mr. Huff was the principal.
Okay.
You never saw him. Lou DeRosa
Yes.
ran the high school.
Yeah.
He was the vice principal.
I know that name.
And you're very accessible. You've got an outgoing personality, and it's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Okay.
so much.